you can refer me. Here's 4 copies of my card. You can refer me to other people. I'm like, I'm sorry, who are you? What was your name? I'm not going to refer somebody I don't know. Networking is more about farming than it is about hunting. It's about cultivating relationships with other business professionals. So what I want to do today is to give you some of the fundamentals of building a powerful personal network. The fundamentals of building a powerful personal network. And the fundamentals begin with 2 things. They begin with the mindset and the skill set for networking. And you have to have both of these. You have to have both the mindset and the skill set in order to effectively network. I'm going to do about a little less than half of my presentation is going to be talking about mindset. And a little over half of my presentation will be talking about the skill set. Oh, like the truth is, I could spend 8 hours talking about skill set and just scratch the surface. There are many skills that are necessary, but I want to give you a handful of things that I think will help you to build a powerful personal network with a skill set, both mindset and skill set. It begins with the mindset. So let's talk about mindset. EQ stands for emotional quotient. EQ stands for emotional quotient. We all know what IQ is. IQ is how smart someone is. You might get hired, or someone might use your company because they think you're really smart, but they're going to, you'll get promoted within a company, or you'll get referred if you have high EQ. You might get hired because you're smart, but you get promoted because you're really effective at working with other people. You get referred because you're really effective at working with other people. EQ is very important. Emotional quotient, social capital, emotional intelligence. These are all very important techniques or skills. We don't teach them in colleges and universities. I asked 12,000 people from around the world, has networking played a role in your success? 12,000 people around the world. 91.4% of those people said, yes, networking has played a role in my success. 91.4%. When have you ever seen a group of people, 91% of a group of people agree to anything ever? I mean, that doesn't happen. You can't get a political party together and have 91%. You can't get this room together, generally speaking, and ask them and have 91% agree to anything. This was a survey that was open to the public. It wasn't just B&I members. It was open to the public. We asked them, has networking played a role in your success? 91% said yes. Yet we don't teach this in colleges and universities anywhere in the world. We certainly don't teach it in the United States. I know you don't teach it here in India. So I had an opportunity didn't want that to pop up, to have a lunch with someone at a university. It was a private university in Southern California. And the president of the university asked me to meet with the dean of the School of Business and to tell the dean what it was that I felt we were not teaching in colleges and universities anywhere in the world. That we're not teaching. That they could learn, that they could teach to make the students better in the real world. And I said, yeah, I'd be happy to do that. So I sat down with them, had lunch, and the president of the university laid it up perfectly and asked the dean, or asked me to tell the dean what I thought we should teach at this university so that our students would be better prepared. And I said we should be teaching business networking, social capital, emotional intelligence, things that are really important out in the real world when you're doing business and you're trying to generate referrals and build your business through networking. And the dean looked at me without blinking and said, we'll never teach that at this university. Networking is a soft science. That's what he said. Networking is a soft science. We're never going to teach it at this university. Now, you know what? I studied under Warren Bennis, Dr. Warren Bennis. Warren Bennis at the University of Southern California. Warren Bennis was one of the world's leading experts on leadership. And one of the things he told me was that leadership is a soft science. Now, I looked at the curriculum. I knew what they taught. I knew that they taught leadership. And so I said to the dean, I said, so you don't teach any soft science here? He said, nope, we don't teach soft science. I said, well, you teach leadership, right? He said, well, yeah, we teach leadership. I said, well, leadership is a soft science. Dr. Warren Bennis, and he knew of Dr. Bennis. I said, look, Dr. Bennis told me personally leadership's a soft science. So it's not really a question of whether you teach a soft science or not, because you do. You're choosing to teach leadership and not emotional intelligence or social capital or business networking. He said, okay, fair enough. We're not teaching that. Well, you may be scratching your head and wondering why. I just spoke to someone from a local newspaper and they said, well, why can't you get the universities to just teach networking? Probably not going to happen in my lifetime, and here's why. Here's why. Here's my theory on why we are not teaching it in school and why we won't probably teach it in school anytime soon. But before I tell you my theory, I need to ask a question. Are there any full-time tenured professors in the audience? No? Okay, good. Because they do not like this theory. They do not like it at all. And there have been some, and man, they got mad when I said it. So here's my theory. You see, curriculums are selected by full-time tenured professors. I was an adjunct faculty member at the university I taught at, part-time. I did it for 16 years, but I was part-time. I had no control over the curriculum, none. The full-time professors control the curriculum. Even the dean technically can't control the curriculum. Even the president can't control it. They can influence it, but it has to be a full-time tenured professor that develops a course at a university. So here's my theory. One of the reasons why, in BNI, I started writing books, and we started training and teaching. When I first started BNI, we didn't have education coordinators in the organization. That came later, so that we could really teach people how to do this effectively. So the first, you threw a trap at me out here. The first of the mindset that I want to talk about today is a concept called the butterfly effect of networking. This is the first of the mindset. So if we're not teaching this in colleges and universities, we have to learn it ourselves. And if you want to learn it yourself, it begins with the mindset. And the first piece of the mindset to understand is this concept of the butterfly effect of networking. Now, the butterfly effect of networking, the butterfly effect is part of the field of mathematics. There's a field of mathematics called chaos theory. And in chaos theory, it says that the flapping of the wings of a butterfly affects some really minute thing in the environment that affects something else, 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 that changes the weather. Okay? So the flapping of the wings of one little butterfly impacts something and impacts something and something else and something else, and finally it changes the weather. I thought that was an interesting concept when I first heard about it, read about it. That was an interesting concept, but I never really applied it to anything else other than some crazy chaos theory concept. But one day I was on this island, Necker Island in the Caribbean. And on Necker Island, there is the Great Room on Necker Island. There's a real delay here. There's this room on Necker Island, the Great Room. Now, this was in 2007, and at the time, that was the only room that had internet. So I had to go to the Great Room. I was staying there on this island. I had to go to this room to get the internet. I happened to be writing a column that was due for Entrepreneur on that day. It later got put onto my blog. But it was due in Entrepreneur, for Entrepreneur. And I don't know if any of you are writers, but sometimes I was completely stuck. I had no idea what I was going to write about. Because everybody that I was with on the island, they were all out there at the ocean, at the pool, they were having fun. I had this deadline. I had to write this article. So I'm sitting here, I'm completely stuck, had no idea what to do. And while I'm trying to think of a topic to write about, up walks Sir Richard Branson. of Virgin Atlantic, Virgin America, Virgin Galactic, Virgin everything, right? He walks on up and he goes, "Hey, what are you doing?" I said, "Well, I have to write an article. I've got this due today." And he said, "Oh, wow." And he said, I understand deadlines. Good luck with it. But when you're done, come on down by the pool and out in the ocean, and we're having fun. Come on down and join us. And if I don't see you this afternoon, next to me at dinner, because I'd like to learn more about what it is that you do." And he walked off. And I sat there and I thought, dang, how did I get here? I mean, what in life brought me to this moment where a billionaire would walk on up and say, "Hey, what are you doing? Come on out and play. You know, let's have some fun. And sit next to me at dinner, we'll talk." I thought, this is amazing. You know, how is it that I got here? And that ended up becoming my column, which is now on my blog, ivanmisner.com. If you go to 2007, you'll see this blog. What I did was I reverse engineered how I got there. I reverse engineered how I got there. And it all began with this person, Kim George is her name. She was a BNI member. She called me up one day. She got referred by a director, called me up one day. And she asked me favor. She asked me for a favor. Now, in the book, I know I'm cutting in and out. It's not because it's too low, trust me. I may need to ask for a handheld if this continues. In the butterfly effect, what I wanted to do was reverse engineer how I got there. How did I get to Necker Island? And I went back 2.5 years to Kim. 2.5 years earlier, Kim called me up and asked me for a favor. The favor was to develop some marketing materials for her coaching company. It was not good timing for me, but it was the right kind of... Let's get a handheld mic. Okay, better? Let's see if this one keeps cutting in and out. This is hard to do, though, with some of my talk, but we'll see how we go. Kim George, 2.5 years earlier, she called and asked me for a favor. And the favor was to develop some coaching material for her coaching company. Now, sometimes you're going to be asked to do things and you have to ask yourself, is this on mission for me or is it a distraction? Is this on mission or is it a distraction? This was totally on mission for me, developing educational material. But there's no way I had the time, but it was on mission. So whenever you have an opportunity where somebody comes to you and asks for something, you have to ask yourself, is this on mission or is it a distraction? If it's on mission, find the time. If it's a distraction, find someone else to help them. But don't do it. This was on mission for me, so I said yes. And so as a result, she had me speak to her conference, her coaching company a few years later. And I did a presentation to her coaching company where I met this gentleman. He was also a keynote speaker there. This is Jack Canfield. Jack wrote that little book called Chicken Soup for the Soul, which has now sold 750 million copies worldwide. Jack invited me to join this organization, the Transformational Leadership Council. Now, how many of you have either read the book or seen the movie The Secret? Okay, so half of the members of TLC were in that movie. As a matter of fact, that movie, much of it was filmed at a TLC conference. So I was invited to join the Transformational Leadership Council, which I've been a member of now for quite a few years. At the Transformational Leadership Council, I met this gentleman, Mark Vicente. And Mark, all right. Mark Vicente. Mark wrote a movie called What the Bleep Do We Know Anyway? What the Bleep Do We Know Anyway? And What the Bleep Do We Know Anyway is about quantum physics, and it's really entertaining. And I never thought I would put those two words in the same sentence before. It really is entertaining. I met Mark. Mark introduced me to this woman, Nancy Salzman. Nancy runs ethics seminars all around the world. She had a friend named Sarah Bronfman. Sarah had a sister named Claire Bronfman. I got to know the two of them through Nancy. One day, Mark Vicente finds out that Nancy is running an ethics seminar on Necker Island, and they had a couple that had to bail at the last minute. And so she was stuck where she had a spot that was open. And so Mark said, hey, I know a couple that might be interested, the Misners, they might come, but it's just a few weeks away. I'll call and ask. And so he called me up and he said, hey, Ivan, would you like to come to Necker Island for a 1-week ethics seminar? You'll be on the island with Richard Branson. Necker Island's owned by Branson. You'll be on the island with Branson, and he'll be participating in the seminar. I said, great, when is it? He said, it's 5 weeks from now. I'm like, 5 weeks, hang on, let me check my calendar. Go figure, it's clear, what a shock. So I opened that up and then went to Necker Island to spend that week where I had a chance to meet Branson personally and spend that entire week with him. But the butterfly effect continues. It continues. It didn't end there. Now, I want to tell you how it continues. And what I'm going to probably do is just tell you guys to click it rather than try and mess with this thing. It continues, but before I get there, I want you to look at this. Look how many steps it took to get to Richard Branson. This was 2.5 years in the making. 2.5 years where it began with Kim George asking me for a favor, which led to something, which led to something, which led to something. That's part of the butterfly effect. When I say networking is more about farming than it is about hunting, I mean it. This was about building relationships. If I did not have a good relationship with Kim, she would not have invited me to speak. If I had not made a really good connection with Jack Canfield, he wouldn't have invited me to TLC. And Mark wouldn't have referred me to Nancy and so on. What happens is that we meet people and we think, this is my one big opportunity. I need to make a sale right now. I need to pitch them right now. It's a bad idea. It's really a bad idea. You know the expression, it's an American expression, but I think it's used here in India. It never hurts to ask, right? Nodding is the universal sign of recognition. Do you know that? Yeah? No? I hear some of you saying, yeah. Okay, so that's wrong. It does hurt to ask. It really hurts to ask, especially if you ask for something before there's a relationship. So if you're asking for a connection or you're asking for a referral and there's no trust there, there's no relationship there, you're not going to get it. So this whole process took 2.5 years. It takes time to build a powerful personal network. This took me 2.5 years, and the butterfly effect continues in my life. Next slide. I was invited to see the rollout of the White Knight 2. This is actually the mothership that will take the spaceship up high, and then the spaceship will drop off and then go into outer space. Branson's goal is that within the next 10 years to have more Virgin Galactic astronauts than all countries combined by using this vehicle as a way of taking people into space. By the way, this is not a PR photo. This was me standing there clicking photographs at the actual event. The person next to him is Bert Rutan, who's the designer of the White Knight 2. Next slide, please. I was then invited to the rollout of the Spaceship 2. The Spaceship 2 is that middle ship, and that's where the mothership will take it up and the spaceship will drop out and then go into outer space. Again, this is not a PR photo. I was at that event where I had a chance to do this. So for me, the butterfly effect continues in life. Next slide. I was invited back to Necker Island and spent a week. This time I didn't have an ethics seminar as part of it. I really got to enjoy the island. I spent a fair amount of time on the island where I got to know Branson reasonably well. Amazing guy and an incredible networker. He's able to communicate with people at all levels of an organization very, very effectively. The thing is that people expect to go from making first contact to developing an incredible relationship, and it doesn't happen that way. It just never happens that way. So the last piece of the mindset is this next piece that I'm going to be talking about. Next slide, please. And that is that you've got to follow that ripple by building relationships with people in order to get to the next level and the next level and the next level. And before I show you the next slide, let me take you back in your mind to Kim George. Kim, who asked me for that first referral. I think it's really important that if something amazing happens in your life, if something incredible happens in you meet somebody you've really wanted to meet for a long time, here's what I want you to do. I want you to reverse engineer how you got there. How did you get to that point where you met this person or you had this business experience? I want you to go home and then think back to how you got there. Reverse engineer it yourself. Then I want you to pick up the